having a notification on my laptop. So I might just briefly, I think what we're going to do on our backs, I don't need to show you too much, but I might just show you briefly. And Nigel, there'll be an option for you if the second thing you don't like. So on our backs, we're going to be doing a bit of tapping our toes and heels, and then both together. And then we'll do a bit of this one, Nigel. You might want to just lengthen your leg out on the floor instead. We're going to do a bit of circling the ankle and shaking the legs out. And then on both sides, we'll come into a bit of bridge pose. So, yes. So I don't think you need to see too much of that. So why don't you lie down? Isabella, I think particularly, you need to lie down, don't you? I don't know if you're going to be able to calm down, but lying down would be good. So lie down, settle down onto your backs, and just a couple of big exhalations. That's helpful to let you settle. And just before we start to focus in on our feet, we'll do a couple of our sort of familiar things we do when we first lie down. So the very first thing you could do is start to let your head roll to the right and to the left. And just see, how does the back of your neck feel? How do your shoulders feel? And just easing your head from side to side. So keeping it easy, keeping it comfortable, not pushing anything. And from letting your head roll to the right and to the left, then settle the back of your head onto the floor in a comfortable place. Come to a moment to feel your footprints on the ground, to feel the back of your pelvis on the ground. And then start to let your knees tilt to the right and to the left. And again, just keep it easy, keep it comfortable. So we're very much at this point sensing our body. How do we feel on this rather grey Monday morning? And just not pushing anything. So maybe just once, twice more, let the knees tilt to the right and to the left. And then settle your feet down on the floor. That's it. So stop tilting the knees. And let a breath come in and let a breath leave you. So we're going to focus in on the feet. And when I was doing this yesterday, I just found it very settling to really let my awareness come out of my busy mind and right the way down into my feet. So starting with your right foot, you're going to lift the front of your foot off the floor and start to tap the floor with your toes. So if you lift your foot up and down, tapping the floor with your toes. That's nice. I can hear lots of nice tapping. And just do that several times. And then try the same thing with that right heel. So several times try lifting the heel and tapping the heel on the floor. And then start to alternate between the heel and the toes. So obviously these are movements for the ankles. You can probably feel this in the ankle. So a couple more times, tap the toe, tap the heel. And then lengthen that leg out on the floor and just give it a little roll or a little bit of a shake. And then bend that right knee and bring the right foot back to stand on the floor. And we're going to do the same thing with the left foot. So start to tap the left toes on the floor. And just this tapping movement can be very sort of grounding and settling, soothing. And then do the same thing with the heel, lifting the heel, tapping the heel on the floor, the left heel. And then start to alternate between the two. Tapping the toes, tapping the heel. Obviously feeling now how this is very much a movement of the ankle as well as the foot. And then let that go and lengthen your left leg out on the floor. Give the left leg a little bit of a roll and a shake and bounce the knees. So whatever you want to do, just to sort of let the ankle and the foot ease out. And then once again, bend that left knee, bring the left foot to stand on the floor. And then in your own time, and this is where, Nigel, you could choose to lengthen out your right leg rather than fold it into your chest. So what you're going to do now, if it's comfortable for you, is to fold your right knee into your chest. And just hold around it for a moment to have a breath or two there. And then from there, we're going to do 3 movements. So the first one is to lengthen that leg up towards the ceiling and give it a shake out. Or do that on the floor if you prefer. So lengthen it up, give it a shake out. Now, for any of these other movements, you might want to hold your hands around the back of your thigh, because the 2 other things you're going to do, one is to circle your ankle with your foot up in the air, which I always really like, and try and circle it in both directions. That might be harder to do with the leg on the floor, Nigel, but you might get through that fine. And the other one to do is to then point the heels away, sort of point the heels, point the toes, with your leg up in the air. And again, you can be holding around the back of your leg, or you can just have the leg up there without any support. It depends what you prefer. And when you've done a bit of circling the ankle and pointing the toes and the heels, just give that leg a shake out again. And then bring it back down onto the floor. And then let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And as you exhale, fold your right knee into your chest. Yes, I think have your you've got your left knee folded into your chest. So if you've done right knee, ignore me. Left knee's folded into your chest. Your right foot is standing on the floor. Now, if you want to, you can lengthen your right leg up towards the ceiling. Left leg, sorry, give it a shake out. My 3 a.m. vet consultation may be catching up on me. So shake that leg out. And then in your own time, either holding around the back of your leg or just letting your leg be up in the air if it's comfortable, circling your ankle in both directions. Yes, or the leg on the floor. Circling the ankle in both directions. I love that feeling, so nice. And then pointing the toes, pointing the heels. Very nice. And then bring that, well, actually shake that leg out before you bring the leg down again. So shake the leg out and then bring that left foot down to stand on the floor. Now, just take a little moment to feel both feet really plump. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. Let another breath come in. And then as you exhale, just 2 or 3 times, you're going to see how does it feel to sink into your feet and roll up and down through bridge pose. And you don't feel that you need to push it. We haven't done that many movements for the spine. We've just been focusing on the feet. So just sort of see how it feels to roll up and down. Nigel, you might want to have your feet a little bit wider apart. And actually, Linda, possibly you as well. That's it. Good. Yes, because just a little bit, Linda, your knees are wandering out. So it might be that you could just think about your knees traveling more directly forwards over your feet. Or it might be you need your feet wider apart.
Well, obviously I can't pay you unless I find my bit. So let me call you back in 2 minutes. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so just 2 or 3 times rolling up and down through bridge pose and just sort of seeing first of all, how does it feel to really plant the feet on the floor, but also how does it feel through your body? How does the spine feel? And don't worry if things do feel a little bit tight. Yeah, that looks really good now, Nigel, you've adjusted your feet. Yes, don't worry if things do feel a little bit tight because we're going to do lots of loosening up movements on hands and knees in a minute. When you've rolled up and down through 2 or 3 bridge poses, you're then going to fold your knees into your chest, or Nigel, you might want to lengthen your legs out on the floor. And if you folded your knees into your chest, just hold around the top of your knees. Do a little bit of rocking from side to side. You can let your head rock as well if you like. And what we're going to do in a moment is we're going to roll over onto our side and we're going to revisit some of the same movements we've done on our back in sitting, and then we're going to do some hands and knees things. So from being on your backs, you can roll over onto your sides, have a few breaths on your sides. And then come to sit with your legs long, leaning back onto your hands. And just let yourself arrive in sitting. So I always think I always feel this is quite a comical place to be. My feet probably look enormous. It's bigger than my head. And so sitting like this, we can roll the legs side to side. Now, I was trying to work out the other day when I was doing this, which is like I think this is because I've done so little driving at the moment, which is windscreen wipers. Is it this one or is it this one? Where we take the legs in and feet in and out. So I think this is windscreen wipers, isn't it, side to side? But we can do both of these movements. And these are obviously movements for the hip joints as well as the feet and the whole of the legs. And just trying to feel that the legs are sort of wobbly as possible and relaxed. And then we can do those same movements of pointing the toes and pointing the heels here. And so as you point the toes, you feel that stretch through the front of the ankles. As you point your heels, you probably feel a stretch through the whole of the back of your legs. Just do those a couple more times. Now, Nigel, the next one, again, you may not like this one, so just see, and you don't have to do it if you don't. So the next one we're going to do is keep leaning back on one hand, and then you're going to hold under your knee with the other arm. And you're going to do some circling of ankle here. Just see how it feels to circle your ankle in orientation. So make sure you're still leaning back on the other arm. Then circling. Yeah, cool. Good. And then try the same thing on the other side. So lean back onto the arm that was just supporting your leg. Put your arm under the other leg. Do a bit of circling on the side. And then come back down, just bounce your knees, wobble your legs on the floor. And then we are going to finally come over onto hands and knees. So come onto hands and knees and settle yourself on hands and knees. We're going to do a little bit of rocking forwards and back. And we're going to be alternating how we have the feet. So one time you rock your hips back over your heels, your feet are going to be flat. You're then going to bring your shoulders back over your hands and tuck your toes under, and then rock your hips back over this. So just keep alternating, rocking forwards and back. One time with your toes tucked under, noticing how that feels. And then the next time with your feet flat. And then you've got a choice, because you can, just depending how you feel, if you rock back with your toes tucked under, you could take this into dog. If you rock back with your feet flat, you could take it into child pose. So I'm just going to do a little bit of moving how you want. So say you feel that you want to go into dog pose, you can rock back, toes tucked under, pick your knees up off the floor. Have a couple of breaths there. If you don't want to come into dog pose immediately, you could be rocking back with your feet flat into child pose and have a couple of breaths there. And just, yeah, see how it feels. So if you're in your dog pose, having a few breaths, easing into dog pose. And then it might be when you come back down, you want to have your feet flat, you want to rock back into child pose for a moment. We're going to carry on with a little bit of going into dog and child in your own time. And in between dog and child pose, you can add in some cat. So rounding your back to the ceiling, dipping your spine down to the floor. So just as much as possible, just see if you can be led by your own body for just this little period of moving between dog, cat, and child pose. Good. And all the time thinking about the feet. So say if you are rocking into dog pose, then tucking your toes under, exhaling, rocking your hips back over your heels. Once you are in dog pose, you could think about coming right up onto the ball of one foot and then the ball of the other foot. So stretching through the soles of your feet. You could even think about rolling through one at a time through the tips of your toes onto the top of the toes. So that one which stretches out the front of the ankle that we do sometimes. You could do a bit of that one as well. And then from dog, you can be coming back onto hands and knees or into child pose. Maybe in your own time, doing one more dog pose before we move on to something else on hands and knees. So again, thinking about when we come into dog, tucking the toes under, exhaling, rocking the hips back, resting through the arms, big handprints on the floor. And then when you're in dog pose, again, that focus on your feet. Another thing you could do if you're thinking about your feet is to take your feet wide as the mat. See how it feels to have a bigger distance between your feet when you're in dog pose. If you don't like it, then obviously come out of it. Good. And then after that dog pose, just give yourself a couple of breaths in a child pose or in kneeling if you prefer, a little bit of hands and knees if you want to. No great rush, just do whatever you like for a moment. So we're going to do a little sequence of twists on hands, knees, which I think I've probably done all of these with you, various variations at some point. So just sit comfortably, sit, watch. Maybe if I show them all to you. So the first one we're going to do, so from hands and knees, we're going to slide one arm under. So we'll do this one first on both sides and come out. And then we'll do this one where we can bring this arm up and around. Okay, that'll be the second one. And we'll do that on both sides again. And then the third one we're going to do, if that second one's all right, is this one where we bring our leg out. And obviously you've really got a bit more room than we do in my house to do this one. And then we'll do that one on both sides. So I'll talk you into these. So come onto hands and knees. These are really good ones for getting all this movement through the rib cage. So from hands and knees, let's start by sliding the left arm underneath. So you keep your right planted on the floor. So you're supporting your weight through that right hand as well as through the side of your head. And you have to check that your neck feels okay with this. And have a few breaths here. And then you can come back out, plant the left hand on the floor. And this time the right arm is going to reach underneath. But again, keep the left hand planted so that you're not taking all of the weight into the side of your head just yet. Good. And I think these are the ones you have to really judge. And Addie T, you need to be careful with your shoulder in these. And all of you just make sure as we progress with them, you're not doing something that's bringing in discomfort. particularly to the neck. So when you've had a few breaths in that second side, come back to the centre. And then the second variation was to take the arm under, just as we did before. But then if your neck is okay with this, to take this arm up, and then you can do the rest on the back of your pelvis or sort of back behind you. So we're thinking about this shoulder moving up towards the ceiling and having a few breaths here. If your neck is not so happy with this, bring this hand back down onto the floor. And then in your own time, untwist. I think it's good to do that quite slowly, not leap out of these. And then sliding the right arm underneath. And the left arm is going to come up towards the ceiling and then drop down onto your pelvis or behind you. And just again, see how that feels. Make sure your neck feels okay. What we're looking for is this movement in the rib cage. Good, good. And then slowly in your own time, coming out of that one. And then we have this last variation. So in this one, it's helpful probably, I think, to take the foot maybe out to the side to start with. So when you're taking your foot out, it's coming quite that ways out to the side and you're coming onto the underneath of your toes and your heel is really stretching away from you. And it just gives you, it helps you to counterbalance this weight of this top arm. So you're stretching into your heel and that arm is coming back. And you can always bring that arm down behind you. And that's quite a strong twist through the rib cage and the upper back. So let's have a look. Very nice. So the toes are pointing towards you. That's, yes, Isabella, see if the toes can point towards you, right? That's it, yes. So the heel is pointing away from you. Good. Good. So the toes are really tucked under. Very nice. You can slowly come out of that and you can try on the other side. So yes, again, at this point, I think it's just trying to get that foot in the most helpful place, which is with the heel pointing away from you, the toes towards you. And then we bring the arm underneath. And we're really anchoring through that foot. Which again, maybe helps to take some of the weight out of the side of the head and the shoulder. Good, so have a few breaths on that second side. It looks very lovely. And then finally, when you come out of that one, I think it would be nice to do a dog pose and just do something where you know where your body is and you feel very more symmetrical. So when you come out of that last side of the twist, back onto hands and knees, tuck your toes under, exhaling, lengthening into dog pose, letting your head go. Just a quiet dog pose if possible, where you're just feeling yourself in dog, having this sense that you can, that's nice, understand where your body is in space. And if it doesn't feel good, then you don't have to stay there very long. Have a few breaths. Of course, you can bend one knee, you can bend the other knee. And then you're going to fold down into child pose and have a few breaths in child pose. Just quieten. Just going to grab a little bit more water. Okay, so child pose or kneeling, have a few quiet breaths. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. We're going to do a little sequence now, which just thinking will I show you, or I think we can probably do it together. I think we can probably do this little sequence together because it's quite straightforward. So you're going to be coming back onto hands and knees. And we're still thinking about the feet here. So what we're going to do is lengthen one leg back behind us and really tuck the toes under. So a bit like we were doing in that last twist. The toes are really tucked under. We're sending the heel away from us. The back of the leg is opening and the toes are really bending. And then do the same up. And then yes, when you've done that with one leg, you're then going to bring that foot forwards into a lunge. So the foot that you were lifting behind you, you're going to bring forwards into lunge. And have a few breaths. So when you're in your lunge, you might just want to experiment with what feels better. Is it better to have your back toes tucked under or to have your back toes flat? And you can play around with that a couple of times. Toes tucked under, toes flat. Have a couple of breaths in your lunge, and then you're going to come back from lunge onto hands and knees. Like off your hands up onto your fingertips, or even lift your hand up. And then lengthen the other leg back behind you with your toes tucked under. And again, really let the back of the knee open. Feel the toes are really folding. And then from here again, step that foot forwards into lunge. In your lunge, very planted in your front foot, and maybe having a little play around with what happens if you tuck your toes under, what happens if you have those back toes flat. And then we're going to come back to hands and knees. When we come to the second time of doing this sequence, we're going to add something else in here. But what we're going to do right now is come into plank pose. So make sure your wrists are over your, no, the wrists are under your shoulders. You lengthen one leg back, you lengthen the other leg back, really stretching the heels away from you. The toes are having to fold under. Can we be in this long, straight line of plank pose? And how does it feel to have a few breaths here? And whenever it starts to feel a bit much, you let the knees come down to the floor, we untuck the toes, we fold back into child pose for a couple of breaths, or into kneeling if you prefer. And just settle for a moment, let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And then we're going to come back onto hands and knees, and we're going to repeat again. So come onto hands and knees. Lengthen one leg back behind you, tuck your toes under, really feel the opening through the back of the leg, and then that foot is going to step forwards into, you're going to bring that foot forwards into lunge. Then once you're in lunge, you're going to have a little play around with the back foot, tucking the toes under, untucking the toes, tucking the toes under. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. So bring that front foot back, so back onto hands and knees. Lengthen the other leg back behind you. Obviously at this point, bring your hand up if you need to. Bring your foot forwards into lunge. Walk the back a little bit if you need to. And some playing around with those toes. Maybe just because it detracts from everything else that's going on in lunge. Tucking the toes under, untucking the toes. And then from lunge, we will come back onto hands and knees. And as I said last time, we're going to add something else in before plank pose. So settle yourself with your shoulders over your wrists. Let a breath come in. And as you exhale, come into fox. So opposite arm and leg, long. And then again here, play around with your toes, pointing your toes and then pointing your heel. And just see how that feels. How does it feel when you're pointing the toes away? How does it feel when you're pointing the heel? Having a few breaths here. And then split sides. Let a breath come in. Exhale, opposite arm and leg. Pointing the toe, pointing the heel. Breathing here. Trying to feel supported through the remaining arm and leg that are in contact with the ground. And let your hand come back down. And from here on into plank pose. So wrists over, under the shoulders. Feeling your long length of plank. Having a few breaths in plank pose. And then whenever you're ready to come out, let your knees come down, fold back, Into child pose. In your child pose, or in kneeling if you prefer, you might like to give your pelvis a little bit of a wiggle. Letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave you. In this child pose, we're going to do a little bit of side bend. So you're going to bring your left arm down by the side of your body. Keep your right arm forwards. And then start to walk over towards the left with your right arm. And you need to pick up your head and take your head with you. I think, again, lots of you know this one from, we sometimes do it in class. So we're lengthening down through the right side of the body. So have a look at me if you're not sure. When you've gone as far as you're going to go over towards the left, make sure your right elbow comes onto the floor. And then let the breath come in and let the breath leave you. And then walk back to the centre, lengthen both arms forwards in the centre. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And then we'll do the same thing going to the other side. So right arm down by the side of your body, walking the left arm over to the right, picking up your head, taking it with you. Keep your forehead in contact with the floor rather than the side of your head, rather than letting your head roll. When you've gone as far as you're going to go, let the elbow come to settle on the floor. Feel the length through the left side of the body. And just a slightly different way into our side bend, moving the arms rather than the pelvis. Arms and shoulders. And then walk back to the centre with your left arm, lengthen the right arm forwards, let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. Come up onto hands and knees and then just do our other way, our more familiar way into side bending, do a little bit of tail wagging and see how that feels. And you also might want to, at this point, lengthen one leg out behind you and then the other. Now, Elaine, you're probably just going to do the first part of this next thing, so I don't want you to push your knee. So when you've given each leg a little stretch out behind you, you're going to tuck your toes under. And so, Elaine, you can do this bit, certainly rocking forwards and back, keeping the toes tucked under. And so, Elaine, you're probably going to stay with that one. Everyone else, when your hips are rocked back over your heels, you could walk your hands in towards your knees, come up onto the balls of your feet and do a little bit of rocking here. So your knees have come off the floor, you're rocking on the balls of your feet. And then to make it really delightful, we can then let our knees come down to the floor. And how does it feel to sit back on our heels with our toes tucked under for a moment? So really lovely. Have a couple of breaths here. Let your shoulders drop. Come back onto hands and knees and then drum your feet down the floor. So Elaine, you can do this one as well. This is quite nice. Drum it. Nice noise there. Lengthen each leg out behind you again, tucking your toes under. Do that on the other side. And then we're just going to repeat that one more time. So hands and knees, tuck the toes under. Start with a bit of rocking forwards and back. It might be as you exhale, you rock back. As you breathe in, you let your shoulders come back over your hands. It might be you stay with this movement. If this feels okay and you want to go further, it's walking the hands into the feet, coming up onto the balls of the feet. What I didn't say last time was maybe spread your toes out at this point, particularly the little toe, and doing a little bit of rocking here. You can support yourself. I'm on my fingertips, but it could be your knuckles, could be the flats of your hands. It doesn't really matter, whatever's most comfortable. And then enjoy coming into this one. Can we drop the shoulders? Can we have a few breaths here, sitting back, toes tucked under? Oh, that's so lovely. And then forwards. So much nicer than the other bit. And then lengthen each leg out behind you. And we're going to come up into standing through a dog, really nice quiet dog pose and a forward bend. So we have long legs. Yeah, and just see how that feels. So take a moment on hands and knees to organise yourself. So you've got big handprints on the floor. You're tucking your toes under. You're exhaling, rocking your hips back over your heels, picking your knees up off the ground, lengthening your legs out into dog pose. And so, of course, your knees can be as bent as you like, both knees or one knee. Having some big exhalations in dog pose, letting your head go, resting through your arms into your hands. And just enjoying the familiarity of dog pose. It's a place that our body knows how to be in. Stay there as long as you like, and whenever you're ready to move on, it's slowly into your forward bend. Having a few breaths in your forward bend. Now, if you end up in your forward bend and your lower back feels a bit vulnerable, bend your knees, rest your elbows on your thighs. Whatever you're doing in your forward bend, let your head go. Feel all of your weights in your footprints. Let the breath come in, let breath leave you. And then in your own time, rolling up into standing. Oh, we arrive in standing with the sun coming out, which is rather nice. So let's just let ourselves be in standing for a moment. So we're going to do a few twisty things to start with in standing, and then we're going to come back. Well, I say we're to come back to thinking about our feet. Obviously, we're probably always aware of our feet in standing. So let's start with this one, which we tend to always do now. Standing, swinging the arm. Nice, loose, easy movement. Keeping it, just keeping it free and easy and comfortable. If you like slapping your arms on your body, you can do that. A couple more times. And then settle down. So, organise your feet so they're hip width apart and parallel. And you're going to bring your hands onto your low ribs. So with the thumb, you look here, I've got my thumbs going round towards the back of my body. And to start with, we're just going to have a few breaths here. Rather than letting the elbows move back, have the elbows coming out to the sides or even slightly forwards. And that just stops your low ribs poking forwards too much. And then just maybe close your eyes and see if you can have a few breaths here. Just feeling the movement of your low ribs with your breath. So we've thought quite a lot about this movement in recent weeks, this feeling that as we breathe, as the breath comes in, it can travel all the way to the bottom of the lungs. We can feel those low ribs expand. And as the breath leaves us, it empties out completely. We feel those low ribs narrow. So maybe another breath or two there. Come on, darling. Come up on the side. Good. And maybe just give your hands a little shake out for a moment. And then bring them back into that place where they're on your low ribs. Actually, first of all, just bring your hands onto your pelvis. We're just going to do these little twisting movements where we leave the pelvis behind. So hands on the low ribs, and now we're thinking about this turning from the waist up. With the hands on the ribs. Also with hands on the shoulders. Also with the hands on the shoulders. And also with the hands on the crown of the head. Good. And then let that go. Come back to this one. Come back to your sort of loose, easy, swinging twist. Okay, sorry, I'm just unmuting because it was clunking around there. Okay, sorry, Daisy's just weed on my rug. I just need to grab something to wipe it up. There, isn't it? Right, so we're going to think now about coming back to the feet, and you're going to come to the back of your mat, and then this is where we're doing the sort of say ministry of funny walks. This is where we're going to start to walk slowly up our mat. So slowing down, I suppose it's exaggerated walking where you're trying to feel each footprint as you walk up your mat. And then do the same thing walking backwards to where we started. And we're just really trying to drop our attention down into our feet. And we can do that again. We can walk up the mat. So slowing down this process of walking, feeling the soles of the feet as they contact the ground. And then backwards. Good. And then maybe just try this once with your eyes closed if you feel comfortable with that. So you have to really slow down if you're doing this with your eyes closed. So feeling yourself peeling one foot off the floor and then placing it down and then peeling the other foot up off the floor. So walking forwards with our eyes closed. We've got to feel when we reach the end of the mat because our foot then surface under the foot changes, and then go really slowly to walk backwards to our starting point. Slowly enough that we can be steady. And arrive. Yes, I'm just realising I'm veering off in a strange line. And arriving back to where we started. So we're going to think about now walking up our mat and taking it into a couple of balances. So you're going to start stepping forwards with your right foot. So that's going to be 1. Then you're going to step forwards with your left foot 2. And now when you place your right foot down, just let your left leg swing a little bit. So you could do this by bending your knee. But I'd like you to try and do it without bending your knee. So your leg is swinging without bending the knee. And then with your hands on the back of your pelvis, can you catch that backwards swing of your leg? And just let your body tip forwards a little bit in response. And try that a couple of times. So let the leg swing back. Do that once more if you like. The leg can swing back. The body tips. Very nice. Come back to the back of your mat, giving yourself a little shake out as you come back there. And then we'll try with the other side. So stepping forwards with the left foot. 1, 2, 3. And again, then we're trying to let this leg be just stood on swinging. So you could let your knee bend and then the leg swings higher up behind you. But can you let your leg swing without the knee bending? And then can you bring your hands onto the back of your pelvis and catch that backward tilt of your leg. Good. Very nice. So do that 2 or 3 times on this side. Lovely. And then coming back out, having a little shake out. And we're going to do the same thing again, but you can do that this time. It's a bit clunky in someone's space, and I'm not sure who it is. Okay, Sarah, I think I've been yours. I've just muted you. Yes, so if you like this time, just watch me for a moment. 1, 2, 3. This time, you could take the opposite arm to leg as you go forward. So I've got the leg raised, so my right arm is coming up by the side of my head. Probably start to tilt forwards a bit, and then bring the arm up. If you start to see your arm, it's gone too low, okay? So that's maybe one little tip. So starting at the back of your mat, we'll step forwards with the right foot. 1, 2, 3. We're going to have the hands on the back of the pelvis. We've got that straight left leg swinging back. And then as we start to tilt forwards, can we bring the right arm up either side of our head? So we're trying to feel we're long from the back heel through to the front fingertips. Good. Very nice. I might just mute everyone while we're doing these balances because it's a little bit distracting with noise, and then we'll put it back on. We're doing something less where we need to focus less. Let's try the same thing on the other side. So come back to the back of your mat. We're going to step forwards this time with the left foot. So 1, 2, 3. The right leg's going to swing. We've got our hands on the back of the pelvis. And this time, as we come forwards, we bring the left arm out by the side of the head. And we have a few breaths there. Well done. Very nice. Come and have a little shake out after that. We are going to come back to these. What I'd like you to do now is come into a forward bend. So just let your spine tumble forward. Have a few breaths there. I'm going to see what happens if I unmute everyone. If it gets noisy again, we'll mute you all again. Good. So just enjoy being in your forward bend for breaths. Yes, Aditi, that's nice. You can do your weeping willow, swinging your arms from side to side. That's lovely. And then sinking into your heels, rolling up into standing. And so when you come back up into standing, come a little bit more towards the middle of your mat. And you're going to step. Let's step the right foot forward. So we're coming into, Daisy, can you move out of the way? Thank you. So we're coming into this position. We've got the right foot stepped forwards. And you're going to do a bit of rocking your weight forwards and back. So it's now like we're going for a little walk, but we're not actually going anywhere. We're just shifting our weight to the heel of the front foot to the ball of the back foot. And eventually from this, we're going to settle our weight down through both footprints. I always want to bring my hands onto my pelvis and just try to feel that from the waist down, everything is heavy and planted. And what we're going to do then is bend the front knee, but keep the back leg straight. And you're going to fold forwards. You can either bring your hands onto your front leg thigh, or you can rest your forearm on your front leg thigh. You're trying to keep your spine long and straight rather than letting your spine round. So have a couple of breaths, letting the spine lengthen out. And then from here, let your left hand come onto the back of your pelvis. And we're starting to turn the shoulders then towards the left, leaving the pelvis where it is. Keep the front leg bent, the back knee straight. You can let your bottom arm hang, or your fingertips could come onto your shin or your ankle or the floor, and your top arm could come up. And have a few breaths there. See how that feels. You're trying to make sure your top arm is immediately above your bottom arm. And your palm is facing forwards if possible. And then from there, let a breath come in. And as you exhale, untwist, flop forwards over your front leg. Let your head go. Let a breath come in. And as you exhale, sink down into the heels and come into standing. And then step your foot back in. Have a little shake out. I'm going to turn around, so I'm still going to be facing you. You don't need to turn around on your mats. So from your feet being side by side in Tadasana in mountain pose, step your left foot forwards now. And do a little bit. Come back to this go for a walk and not getting anywhere. Weight into the front foot, weight into the back foot. Ball of the heel of the front foot, ball of the back foot. And then eventually we'll settle the weight down through both feet. Hands on the pelvis. Big exhalations. And then bending the front knee, really keeping anchored through the back heel, folding forwards. How does your spine feel? Can you have a sense of when your spine is long and when it's rounded? If your spine is long and straight, your gaze is probably going down just in front of your front foot. If you're looking back towards your foot, your spine might be rounding a bit more. So hands or forearm, left forearm on your bent thigh, right hand on the back of your pelvis. You're starting to turn your shoulders and your ribs towards the right, trying to leave your pelvis where it is. You can release your bottom arm down to the ground. You can support your fingertips, ankle, shin, floor. Or just let the arm hang and the top arm can come up. Maybe. Is it comfortable to bring that top arm up? Don't do it if it isn't. It can always come back down again. Can the top arm feel free and relaxed? Can the bottom arm hang? Can you give it away? Good. A few breaths here. And then untwisting in your own time. Let your head go, flop forwards. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. Sinking into your heels, coming back into standing. Have a little shake out. And then once more, you're going to fold down into just a quiet forward bend. So I just think it's always really nice to sort of feel the difference between that quite complicated movement and the simplicity of sinking our weight into our heels and just letting our spine and our head tumble forwards. Heavy head, heavy arms. If you like, as Aditi was doing the last time, you can sweep your arms around the fronts of your feet in that weeping willow movement. It feels nice to add some movement in, or you're just quiet in your forward bend. And then in your own time, let a breath come in. As you exhale, sink into your heels, roll up into standing. We've got one more movement to stand. A little shake out when you arrive. And we're coming back to the balance we were doing, but we're going it in a slightly different way, which we did when we were having real classes. So from feet hip width apart again, you're going to step your right foot forwards. And then you're going to do this funny one. We shift our weight by bending our knees, and we don't pick our feet up off the floor. One where we're stuck in the mud. And I want you to end up eventually, so your front knee is bent and your back leg is straight. And you're bringing your hands into prayer pose at your heart. And then what we're going to do is we're going to shift our weight forwards into this bent front knee. And as we bring the back leg up, we're also going to bend it. So we're in this sort of slightly funny It's like we're doing a sort of cartoon running. And then from here, can you start to straighten both legs and start to tilt forwards? So we're coming back to balance we were in. Really reaching into your back heel. Having a couple of breaths there. Yes, very nice. You can be beautiful. You can come back up whenever you want to. You can have a little shake out. So you don't have to go really low in that one. Just really think about, it's good to think about the feet in this one actually. And maybe having the knees bent makes us think even more about the feet. So let's try the other side. Again, I'm just turning round so it's easier for you to see. So this time step the left foot forwards and then do your strange. These are all sort of like cartoon movements, aren't they? So I sort of think about road runner or things like that. So this first one where we're shifting our weight forwards and back without letting our feet come away from the floor. And then we're settling with the front knee bent, the back leg straight, the hands at the heart. So all we're going to do from here is let the back foot come up off the floor, keep the front knee bent, come into the sort of funny cartoon runnery place, and then just see what happens if we really sink into the standing foot and reach back with the right heel. Starting to straighten both knees. They don't have to straighten completely. And it might be that you start sitting forwards a bit. Breathe. Fine, you can fall out, you can always come back up. You can always try again. It really doesn't matter where you get to. Very nice. And then come out. Let all of that go. Maybe come back to a little bit of this one if you like. So we're going to come into one last forward bend. Now, Elaine, you're going to do your forward bend at the back of the mat, so you can come down through dog pose to the floor. The rest of you, we're going to come down from a squat. So, yes, so if you need your book or your block or roll up the back of your mat, don't do it until you're slowly going through. So, from your feet being hip width apart and parallel, you're going to roll down into a forward bend and have a few breaths in your forward bend. So again, this sort of simplicity of the forward bend. We know where our body is. We're hopefully not going to fall over. We can just keep our weight in our heels and let our spine tumble forwards. And then from the forward bend, Elaine, you're walking your hands forwards into dog pose. Everyone else, you've got the joy of starting to bend your knees forwards over your feet and moving on down into your squat and having a few breaths there. So if you want to roll up your mat under your heels or slide a block or a cushion there, you can do. And could we do something quite, well, I said quite nice now, I hope you like it. We're going to be coming to sit in cobbler pose, but we're going to come on and do a little bit of a foot massage in sitting. So I'm going to come a little bit closer, and you don't have to. I think to see how cobbler pose feels first of all. Yeah. And don't worry if it's a little bit noisy your end, because I think it's good that we can talk here. Now, I'm saying cobbler pose because one way, if I'm doing the foot massage, I quite like to do this version of cobbler pose where I'm bringing one foot on top of the other. So if this works for you, it's quite a nice way to be able to massage one foot, but you don't have to sit like this. You could sit, just sit however is comfortable for you that enables you to get to the sole of one foot so that you can. So we're just thinking about massaging the sole of the foot however you like. I'm doing it with my big toes. You could also do it with your knuckles into the inner and the outer arch of the foot. And the thing I particularly like, well, there's a couple of things. There's this point here I can come up really close, but I'm sure some of you know this from doing this previously. This point here, right at the sort of center, just below the ball of the foot, which is this acupressure point, which is really nice to press. And then the other thing, massaging the sort of underneaths of the toes is really lovely. So those are the couple of things that would be good to include in your foot massage. So I always think it works well here, and you've got the underside of the foot facing you, to slide your thumb up the underneath of the toes, if you can do that. Ah, yes, and there was one other little thing I'd remembered. This one where we take the toes for a walk. So you could have your foot like this. So do you remember this one? You get your big toe, you get your big toe and your next toe, and you move them in opposite directions. And then you do that with the next toe. You've got a pair of toes and you're moving them in opposite directions. And you go along through all the toes, having a pair of toes, moving them in opposite directions, so as if they're going for a little walk. And then let's lean back onto our arms for a moment, just lengthen the legs out, and we'll do the other foot. So however's comfortable for you to sit, if the cobbler pose works, you can do that, or just something that lets you get to the bottom of your foot. You might want your foot up on your thigh. Lets you get to the bottom of your foot. Can you massage the sole of your foot with your thumbs, with your knuckles, with the heel of your hand? So the inner arch, the outer arch. We can press into that point, that acupressure point, sparkling spring that's right in the center beneath the ball of the foot. Feels a bit tender there. Press into it with your thumb and then release. And then that lengthening out the underside of the toes. And as you're doing so, you can do a little bit of gently pulling your toes away from the foot. Sometimes you get a bit of a click on the thumb. And then there's the taking the toes for a walk. So the pairs of toes, moving them in the opposite direction. Now we've got one more thing we will try here. So lengthen your legs out for a moment, and I'm going to show you close up. So in this one, I quite like to have my foot on my thigh. What you're trying to do is, with your opposite hand and foot, with your palm facing the sole of your foot, you're trying to thread your fingers in between your toes. Yeah? Again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So it might be that you're leaning back on the other arm. It doesn't matter how you have your leg, but can you thread your fingers between your toes and do a little bit of massaging? Yeah. So remember, it's opposite hand and foot. If you try and do the same hand and foot, it's going to be harder and less satisfying. So, and this is about creating a bit of space between the toes. We can do that on both sides. Very nice. And you can be leaning back on the arm that isn't massaging the foot. So you can swap sides. Again, opposite hand and foot, palm of the foot facing the sole of the foot, threading your fingers between your toes, and then little bits of a massage. Yeah. Good. Now, we're going to just, before we come to do some things lying down and feeling our feet on the floor after this massage, we're just going to do a short little breathing thing, and I'd like you to sit with your back against the wall, ideally, or on a block, just so that you can have your feet quite free like this, because we're going to stretch our feet in the breathing. So I would definitely, if I wasn't sitting here so you can see me, I would definitely be having my back against a wall. As it is, I'll sit on a block just to be more comfortable. So we want to be able to stretch into our feet. And we're also going to stretch into our hands. You'll probably be wishing I'll be muting you in a moment, because what we're going to do is lion breath, and I will demonstrate. We'll do it together. So on an out breath, we're going to roar. We're going to spread the hands, spread the feet, Tongue comes out to try and touch the chin. The eyes roll up like this. I just so the animals, all your animals are suddenly going to be very upset. So we're going to do that 3 times. We're going to spread the hands and the feet. So let a breath come in, eyes roll up, tongue comes to touch the chin. Let a breath come in. Good. We'll do that twice more. Let a breath come in. One last time, so remember, spread hands, spread feet, roll the eyes, stick the tongue out. Very nice. And then we are going to now come to lie down onto our backs first of all, and we will do a little bit on our belly. I don't think I need to show you anything, so lie down onto your backs. And yes, first of all, just see how, how does it feel to be back in lying after quite a lot of movement. And I'd just like to lie quietly, first of all, with your hands resting on the front of your body. Just feeling, after those sort of roaring breaths of lion, just feeling your quiet breath in your body. The breath coming in, the breath leaving you. And then it might be quite nice if your legs are long to bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. And so after that foot massage, all the things we've done around the feet, how does it feel to lie with your feet contacting the floor? And then see how it feels, just sinking into those feet. How does it feel to roll up and down through a couple of bridge poses? You can keep it very easy. So as you exhale, sink into your feet, let your spine pick up off the floor. And then rolling back down again. It's a little bit noisy, so I might mute everyone. Good. And just a couple of bridge poses, rolling up and down, and then settling your pelvis back onto the ground. And actually, I've unmuted you again because this next thing, it's probably quite good to hear the sound, because what you're going to do is, using your trouser leg, you're going to pick your right foot off the floor, and then you're going to let the right foot drop back down onto the ground. So you're going to pick your right foot off the floor, use your trouser leg to help you pick up the leg, and then drop the foot back onto the ground. And you're going to repeat this several times with the right foot. So the knee comes a little bit in towards your chest, you're using your trouser leg, catching a hold of the trouser leg on your thigh to help you lift your foot. So you just catch your trouser leg in the front of your thigh. It just helps keep your leg a bit more passive, and drop the foot back onto the floor. And then try several times with the left foot. So catch the trouser leg in the front of your thigh, lift your left foot off the floor with you're wearing very tight leggings, you might not need to catch your trouser leg, that's fine. Just lifting your left foot off the floor, letting it drop down again. And then how does it feel to lift both feet off the floor and let them drop? So we're just trying to let the legs be passive, dropping the feet back down with a little bit of a thud. And then the next time your feet hit the floor, can you let your pelvis come straight up into bridge pose? So the feet go down and the pelvis comes straight up into bridge pose. See if you can make that connection. Drop the feet down, let the pelvis come straight up. So it's almost like a movement. Good. Good, that's nice. Drop the feet, let the pelvis come up. And repeat this a few times. Okay, just once or twice more. Just lie quietly for a moment, let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And then try what I always think is as the opposite movement, where you sink into your feet, you lift your pelvis a little bit off the ground, and then you drop your pelvis onto the ground, a little bit of a thud. So you don't need to lift your pelvis very high. So you sink down into your feet, and then you drop your pelvis back down to the ground. And this one can feel surprisingly nice for releasing the muscles around the pelvis. So the pelvis lifts an inch or two, and then you let it thud down onto the ground. So when you lift it, you're in control. When you're letting it drop down, you're just trying to let it fall down. So if you like that one, do that a couple more times. And then just lie quietly. See how you want to lie now. See if you stop doing any of the movements, how does your body want to lie for a moment? So you could lengthen your legs out if you want. You could fold your knees in if you want. You could keep your legs standing on the floor. It's entirely up to you. Letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave you. So we're just going to have a little brief visit to lying on our belly, doing just a few things actually for the feet on our bellies. And then we're going to come back onto our backs and do a floor twist. So if you can, from lying on your backs, just roll over onto your belly without actually sitting up, unless you want to have a drink of water, that's fine. And just come to settle on your belly. I've got everyone muted now because I just think we need to be a little bit quieter. And but if you need to talk to me, just wave at me. So come to roll onto your belly. And the first thing, just make yourself comfortable. So I really don't mind how you have your arms, wherever is most comfortable. I quite like to rest the back of my forehead on the back of my hands. Now, the first thing you could do is give your pelvis a bit of a wiggle. And then let yourself settle down and working with one foot. So maybe start with your right foot. what I'd like you to do here a few times is tuck your right toes under, exactly, Sarah, and then untuck them. So tuck your right toes under and then untuck them. And just repeat that a few times. So it's a little movement. We tuck the toes under, we untuck them. Maybe twice more on the right side. And then let that right leg go. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And do the same thing now on the left side. Tuck the left toes under and then untuck them. And just repeat that a few more times, tucking the left toes under and then untucking them. So once more on the left side, once more, twice like, it's up to you. And then just let the feet rest for a moment. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. Give your pelvis a wiggle if you want to. Make sure your arms and shoulders are comfortable. And then come back to your right leg and foot. And what we're going to do is, by bending your right knee, just lift your foot a little bit off the ground. Just a small amount, because I want you to then drop the foot back down onto the floor. So if you lift your foot high, you're not going to want to drop it. So you lift the foot a little bit by bending the knee, and you're dropping the foot onto the floor. So just like we were dropping the feet when we were lying on our backs. So you're sort of tapping the top of that right foot on the floor. Good. That's nice. So again, it's an active movement when you bend the knee and you lift the foot up, and then when you let it fall, it's passive. You're just letting the leg fall down. And then repeat that on the left side a few times. Okay, just once or twice more on that left side, good. And then in your own time, you're going to roll back onto your back. And at this point, because we're going to do a floor twist, at this point, if you think you might want a cushion either under your shoulder or under your knees, and then make sure you've got a cushion within reach. So roll onto your back, and when you arrive on your back, just do whatever feels good on your back. Like just being on your back might feel nice. So lie onto your back, that's it, let yourself arrive. And good, have another couple of breaths, just doing whatever you want to do. And then we're going to do the floor twist, where you're folding your knees into your chest. So let your feet come off the floor, fold your knees into the chest. Let's take our right arm around, either around the back of the legs if you can do, or supporting the legs with your right arm. And your left arm's going to come out onto the floor at shoulder height, or wherever it's comfortable. And then we're trying to keep that left shoulder on the floor. Keep the knees close to your chest as you exhale, and bring your knees down towards the floor on the right. And it might well be that you want, it might be that your elbow can come to the floor and support your legs. It might be that you want to slide a cushion under your legs or even between your legs, particularly if you're going to take your arm out from underneath them. Notice what happens to your left shoulder. You want to keep your left shoulder in contact with the floor. It might be that some of you need to put a cushion under your left shoulder if it's not comfortable. Have a few breaths here. You want to feel that the legs can be heavy and the shoulder can be heavy. And the knees are as close in towards your chest as possible, but that may not be so close for all of us. Good. And just have a few breaths here. So receiving the inhalation in this twisted place, maybe we feel the breath come in more in the upper part of the ribcage and the lungs. And then as we exhale, feeling heavy through the shoulder, the left shoulder, and feeling heavy through the legs on the right side. And we'll stay here for another few cycles of breath, as long as that feels okay. If at any point you need to bring your knees back to the center, then please do so. Otherwise, letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave you. And with each new exhalation, we let the weight of our body settle down onto the ground. See if you can feel another cycle of breath on this side of your twist. So let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And then in your own time, on an exhalation, let your knees come back to the center and just give yourself a few breaths in the center. That could be with your knees folded into your chest, or it could be with your feet standing on the floor. Or you could even lengthen your legs out if you like. And then we'll move on to the other side. But yes, give yourself plenty of time in the center. So side 2, you're going to fold your knees into your chest. You're going to support your legs with your left arm. It could be that you wrap your left arm around the back of your thighs if you can, or you have your hands supporting the outside of the left leg. Your right arm comes onto the floor at shoulder height. As you exhale, slowly let the knees come down towards the left, trying to keep your right shoulder heavy on the floor. You might keep your arm under your legs to keep supporting them. You might slide a cushion under them. If your shoulder comes up, you might pop a cushion under there. Once you're down in the twist, check how your neck feels. You might want to let your head roll a little bit. Just check that your back of your neck hasn't shortened or tightened. The neck feels as free as possible. Good to see the cushion there, Nigel. Excellent. Have maybe a couple of big sighing breaths. And then this feeling of really giving the weight of the legs down to the floor on the left, feeling the right shoulder heavy on the ground. Letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave you. And of course, as on the other side, if you need to come out before I say so, please do so. Otherwise, just this giving ourselves a bit of time in the twist. So we perhaps, as the breath comes in, we feel the expansion of the inhalation in the upper part of the rib cage. And as we exhale, there's that feeling of settling down onto the ground through these two sides of our body, through the right shoulder, through the legs on the left. If you're comfortable, let yourself have another few breaths on this side, but whenever you're ready, slowly, as you exhale, bringing your knees back to the center. And again, when you arrive in the center, do whatever you like. And we're going to be settling down now for some breathing and relaxation. So it might be that you want something warmer on, you want a blanket on. It's not quite as warm today as it has been, so make sure you're not going to be cold. And we're going to do a breathing exercise, which I think we might have done last week or the week before, where we take our awareness into some different parts of our body in lying and just focus on the breath in 3 different places. So settling down either with your legs long or your knees bent, whatever's most comfortable. You can, of course, as I always say, you can always have your legs up on a sofa. A bed might be a little bit high, but if you're in your bedroom. And the first place you're going to bring, actually, before we even think about bringing our hands onto our body, let's come to feeling the head on the floor and letting the head roll a little bit to the right and a little bit to the left. Easing the head from side to side. And then finding a comfortable place to settle your head down, where the centre of the back of the head or thereabouts is resting on the floor. And then the first place you're going to bring your hands is low down onto your belly, beneath your belly button. So you might have the heel, the sort of fleshy part of the base of your hand, on the sort of bony parts of the pelvis. You can feel what we often think is the hip bones. Bony bit of the pelvis we can feel there, and the fingers going down towards the pubic bone, so really low on the belly. And let your hands settle there and notice what you feel as you let the breath flow in and out. And it might be that you feel a lot of movement in this part of your body. It might be that you don't feel so much. And as well as the hands feeling the movement or not of the belly feels the warmth and the weight of the hands. So we have this 2-way sensing process going on. And from there, you're then going to slide your hands up and out a little bit. So the hands come to the low side ribs. If you like, your thumb can go round towards the back ribs like we did in standing, but it doesn't have to. It might be more relaxing to keep the thumb with the fingers. And so again, we're coming back to that feeling of these bottom ribs moving as the breath travels in and out. And really give each breath plenty of time and space. So the breath is traveling all the way to the bottom of the lungs, expanding those low ribs when you breathe in. And when the breath leaves you on the exhalation, it's long and slow. Those ribs narrow, the lungs empty. The body settles. So a couple more breaths, widening and narrowing around your middle, emptying and filling with the in and the out breath. And then finally bringing your hands onto the upper part of your chest, just beneath your collarbones. Make sure your elbows can still rest on the floor. And just noticing, what do you feel here in this upper part of your chest as you let the breath flow in and out. And remember, as well as feeling the movement of the ribs and the chest under the hands, the chest can feel the warmth and the weight of the hands that sense of sort of reassurance, calming, soothing weight. Letting the breath flow in, letting the breath flow out. We're just going to lie quietly for another minute or so you can put your hands wherever you like now. It could be in one of the positions we've come to today. It could be with your arms on the floor. And just let yourself rest quietly, supported by the ground, aware of the ebb and flow of the breath in your body. Let yourself enjoy being quiet and at rest. So as usual, I'm going to ring the singing bowl 3 times, and you do not need to move until we reach the silence at the end of the final ring. And in your own time, no rushing, you can start to come back round. I will unmute everyone, and I will also stop recording.